Hey, how's it going, guys? This is Ice Restrict 12. Today we're gonna go and do another 5 tips that are gonna make you a better Yu-Gi-Oh player. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it, guys. Tip number 1, go to tournaments and play. Don't be afraid to lose. One thing I've noticed is a lot of players are kind of afraid or a little hesitant to go to their locals because, you spend a lot of money into these decks, and I feel like sometimes it can be a little bit, heartbreaking to spend so much money and time building a deck just to go to locals and have people that have been doing this before you and that have more resources to buy better cards, better decks, just completely destroy you. Now, I know it kind of sucks. I've been on the receiving end of this, but guys, the only way that you're gonna get better is by playing good players. The more you play skillful players, the more you're gonna learn, not only from them and what they do, but also from, you're gonna learn a lot about your deck and a lot about yourself, how you play the game. Not to mention that you're gonna be able to make friendships with some of the guys in there or girls, and more connections for you to be able to get better cards, look at their binders, power up your deck. So connections, networking, guys, learning from them, learning from your mistakes. So go out and play. Don't be afraid. Trust me, you will get better. The next tip, guys, that I have here for you is play different decks. This is very important. The reason why is because, as we all know, not all decks in Yu-Gi-Oh are created the same. Some decks are better than others, but even within that, there's some categories. So there's control decks, combo decks, stun decks, beatdown decks. So play different things. Not only are you gonna get better as a player, but also you're gonna get to try different strategies that are gonna make you think differently. You play one deck, you do a couple things with that deck, and then you kind of realize, oh my god, I can do this with my old deck. Or even if if you start playing a combo deck and that's all you play, and every now and then you pick up a control deck, well, guess what, that's gonna make you a better player for when you go against a control deck. So play different decks. Don't just stick to your deck. Don't just stick to, if you're a control player, don't just play control. Every now and then grab a combo deck and try to figure that out. Alright, guys, now tip number 3, side deck in a way that complements your strategy. What I mean by that is, if you're going against someone and you know exactly what the weakness of the deck is, play cards that, yes, will stop that, but at the same time cards that complement your deck. So what I mean by that is, let's say I'm a control player and I'm playing a deck that uses a lot of trap cards. Well, playing a card like Evenly Match, where my opponent has to have the same amount of cards that I do, will probably not be a good idea, because chances are that I'm gonna have a big back row. Let's say I have 2, 3, 4, 5 cards in my back row. So when I activate that Evenly Match, my opponent is gonna be able to keep the same amount of cards that I have on my side of the field. So long story short, guys, don't just play cards on your side deck to go, just to stop your opponent. You still have to play the game yourself. Your deck still has to be able to function. So for instance, if you're a Sky Striker player and you're going against another magic card, spell card heavy deck, and you side deck, Imperial Order and 3 anti-spell fragrances, that's also gonna come around to bite you. So try to think of other ways that you can stop the opponent's deck without it hurting you. So play cards that complement your strategy. The next one, guys, is always cut your opponent's deck. Whenever you're playing, guys, a lot of times, when they're going through, they do a search, they offer you to cut, always cut the deck, guys. Some people are really good at, setting their deck in a way that they're more likely to get certain cards, and it's just something that you're expected to do. This doesn't mean you don't trust them. It's just part of the game. Every time somebody digs through their deck, if they offer you the deck, just cut it. If they don't offer you the deck, ask, can I cut your deck? And they should, 100%. It is your right to cut their deck every time they go through a search. There has been cases where some, sadly, some Yu-Gi-Oh players have arranged their decks where, they kind of do these semi-shuffles, so they kind of know what cards they want, next to each other in their deck. But that could be that could cost you the game, that could cost you topping out locals, or that could cost you a big important tournament. So always cut your opponent's deck. One thing I personally like to do, and I don't think no one has ever felt a certain way about this, is I don't just cut the deck, I shuffle the deck. So my way of cutting is I grab my opponent's deck and I just do 2 shuffles and give it back to them. That's all I do. I'm very respectful. I make sure to take care of the cards, and that way I ensure that my opponent is not arranging his deck in a way that's beneficial to him. Alright, guys, and the very last one, don't be afraid to ask questions. this happens a lot, especially for instance if you're playing a combo player and he's using a deck like Infernoble Knight and he's just going off doing all kinds of different, you know, summonings and activations and all that stuff. Sometimes players move a little too quickly. If you want to be able to catch up with what's going on, don't be afraid to be like, hey man, quick question, what does that card do? Oh, okay. And then, you know, if he's just, you know, doing one thing after the other, not only is it going to ensure that he doesn't cheat, but a lot of times it's not that players want to cheat, as sometimes combo decks have so much things going on that, you know, you might misplay and not do it intentionally. So this helps you, you know, stay on top, stay aware of what your opponent is doing, but also ensuring that whatever he is doing, it's legal, whether he does it intentionally or not. So always don't be afraid to ask questions. If you don't know what a card does, you know, most players will be more than happy to tell you, hey look, this is what my card does and this is how I'm using it. But if you run into one of those players that's, you know, kind of a jerk and, you know, he gets mad because you're asking questions, you're 100% have the right to ask, hey, can I read that card? Because it's part of the game and they have to let you read it. All right, guys, so I hope these tips help you be a better Yu-Gi-Oh player. If you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and give me a like, subscribe, and I will be seeing you in the next one. Enjoy.